Welcome to AgriBoss.com. In this video, I will be showing you the sod farm management software I've developed and how it might be a powerful asset for you and your business. You might be asking, what is AgriBoss? AgriBoss is a web-based application that you access through your browser that solves some problems unique to sod farms, such as field management, order taking, customer quotes, and dispatching. The chief advantage of AgriBoss is that it is accessible from anywhere you can access the internet and works on any device. This means you can see what's on the delivery schedule no matter where you are, be it in the office, out in the cutting field, or across the country while on vacation. Let's take a brief tour of the program's features. The first page you come to when you log into AgriBoss is the home page. You can see a couple of panels here that have some icons to navigate to different parts of the program. Also, a bar up here has some drop-down menus that you can also use. The first thing I'd like to show you is the price quote feature. This comes in really handy. A lot of farms still use like pencil and paper with a calculator to give customer quotes over the phone. This works, but it is, we found, somewhat error-prone and led to a lot of inaccurate quotes being given to customers. What this basically does is it maintains a database of your pricing, and it allows your staff, while talking to the customer, to quickly type in the order details here and be able to instantly give them a price. Really, it's only a couple fields that you have to select, the first one being your price group, which these are all customizable. You can have as many or as few price groups as you'd like for each product. But if we're talking to a retail customer that, say, want 2 pallets, which in our case here would be 1,200 square feet of Kentucky bluegrass, as soon as you start typing in this field, it takes your item list and will generate these codes that you can select. So we'll go down to Kentucky bluegrass, and we'll say it's being delivered to zone 2, which again, all of these zones are customizable. You can have as many custom zones as you'd like. But as soon as you select the final parameter there, you can see that all of the pricing details have been generated. Subtotal, freight, in our case it's a unit price per square foot, but you can also have flat rate pricing, or a combination of flat rate and unit pricing with really any quantity increments. So really you can have a pretty complicated pricing structure, and it'll still calculate with this. And we also do charge a pallet deposit as $10 per pallet, and this would ship on 2 pallets. And then of course sales tax. So you can tell the customer the grand total would be $472.88. And really, once your staff, after a couple phone calls, they get the hang of this, they can really, it doesn't take much time at all to quote customers. There's also a feature here where you can type in the customer name and phone number, and it'll actually save that to a event log here. So you can go back and pull that up in the future. Next feature I'd like to show you is the delivery schedule. This is where you'll probably spend most of your time on AgriBoss. I guess it's probably the best and most powerful feature, and is pretty much why I developed the program. This is basically your delivery schedule and pickup schedule as well. So for each day, you would have a separate schedule. In this case, we're looking at Sunday, March 2nd. Obviously, this is fictitious. We're usually closed on Sundays, but we're just going to use this for demonstration purposes. Basically, you have your customer name here, the location where it's being delivered to, or in our case, for pickup orders, we code them in as P/U and then PTF, which is the abbreviation for one of our pickup farms. The quantity, which in our case is square footage, but you can also use square yards if you're still using that system. Item, Kentucky bluegrass, this is what we use for as an item code for that, just KBG. RTD, that's the requested time of delivery. The farm, field, the driver who's taking the delivery, and then the load number, customer phone number. I just put in my phone number instead of making up phone numbers for that. And then any order notes would go in here. The status, I'll go into this a little bit in a little bit more detail later, but for instance, if you mark this order to cut, which is blue, that order will actually be sent to your field foreman or your harvesting crew if they have a smartphone or iPad or even a small computer. They'll be able to see which orders the office wants to have cut, and then once they cut it, they can actually press a button on their smartphone, and it'll actually automatically fill in this dark blue box, which signals to the office that order has already been cut. And likewise, you can do the same with your delivery drivers. You click to load, and that'll send that order to their smartphone or iPad, and then they can click when it's loaded, and then again when it's delivered. It just keeps everyone on the same page, which is really a nice feature of this program. I'll just quickly run through some of the other features on the schedule page here. The view filters, this comes in handy, especially once, I just put in a couple orders here as an example, but on busy days this page will be quite lengthy, and it's sometimes helpful to filter out some of the orders depending on what you're doing. For example, if you're dispatching, you may not be so interested in these pickup orders, since your delivery trucks really won't handle these at all typically if the customer is picking up in the field. So you can actually set up these filters here, and I'll deselect our pickup orders. And if I click save, when the schedule reloads, you only see these delivery orders. Those pickup orders, they're still on the schedule, but they're just invisible to us right now. So this makes it more easy to see at a glance for dispatching purposes where your trucks are going. It's also worth mentioning each of these values or columns here are sortable. So you can sort by load, by driver, sort by quantity, location. You just click the top row there and it'll sort. It's actually quite handy for if you have a very complicated schedule. You can first sort by load and then click driver, and it'll be nicely ordered first by driver and then by their load. So Clark's first load, Clark's 2A, Clark 2B, and then John 1, John 2, and so forth. The default sort is by ID number actually, which is just the order that the order was entered. Next we have the item tally feature. Let me just turn back on that filter there. The item tally feature here, if you check these boxes, it's sometimes helpful to be able to just automatically add up whatever orders you want to add together. In this case, there's 42,000 square feet exactly coming out of these 6 orders here. So you can select as many or as few as you want here. It'll just give you a quick tally. It's sometimes helpful in communicating with the cutting crew exactly what they have to cut, and that'll actually sort it by field. So say for example this is coming out of field 5 instead of field 10. If you tally these 3, it'll actually break it out on 2 separate lines, so they only know to cut 2,400 square feet out of field 5 and then 19.2 out of field 10. This box here, this is basically how you control what day's schedule you're looking at. You can hit next to go to Monday, which we don't have any orders tomorrow because this is a fictitious schedule. But you can just hit forward and backwards, or you can click the date there and actually look at the calendar and select it that way. Or you can always just click today to go to today's schedule. This is just a recent activity log. This will actually stream live as users are making changes. You can actually it'll actually pop up here when somebody changes something on the schedule, so everyone sees that. Down at the bottom here, there's ranged orders. These would be for orders that don't have a day-specific delivery. So if you were to give a customer like a several day or a week window on delivering a product, you would put it down here, and then when it's convenient to you, you would just press a button here and it would be pushed onto the day's delivery schedule. At the bottom we have some the schedule notes here. In this pane, whatever notes you enter here, it'll only show up on this day's schedule. So if you had a driver leaving early, you might put John leaving by 3 p.m. and then that would be saved just on this day's schedule. This perma-note box, this note will show up on every day's schedule. So if you have more permanent notes that you want to make your staff aware of, like call dispatcher if customer requests next day AM deliveries, you can leave that in there. So if you go to the next day, you see that the note about John leaving early is gone from Monday's schedule, but the perma note that was in there from yesterday is still in there today. And then finally there's some schedule stats. This shows you what users entered the orders. I put all 9 of these orders in here just as an example, but you can kind of tell who, it'll give you a listing of how many orders are taken by each of your staff, so you can kind of tell, I guess, who to reward there for picking up the phone first. It'll also give you a tally of each item. I only have Kentucky bluegrass on the schedule here, but we grow several different varieties, so it'll give you a total of each variety for each day. There's also a batch change feature here. Sometimes when you get real long delivery schedules, it's convenient to be able to apply a change to multiple orders. So if you wanted to, modify all of these orders at the same time, you would just check the box there, and then you could change really any one of these parameters. So say we ended up wanting to cut in a different field. We're going to say change it from field 10 or field 5 to field 1. You just type P1, hit apply, and then you can see that it's been changed to P1. But we'll change it back to P10. And you see it's back to P10 there. You also use this feature if you want to export your orders. You would want to export the orders if you're using financial software, which I assume you are. In our case, we use QuickBooks. So we actually, at the end of the day, we export all of these orders into a comma-separated values format, which you can then import into QuickBooks, and then it just makes your invoices for you. It's a great time saver. Probably save, I'd say, 3 to 4 hours of invoicing each day. You might be asking now, how do you actually enter an order so that it shows up on the schedule? There's actually 2 ways to do that. One way is the quick way, which we use for usually pickup orders, and then the other way is the slightly longer way for delivery orders. For pickup orders, you can actually go to the bottom of the schedule here, and it's pretty self-explanatory. You just put the customer name in here, so say Jack's Landscaping. I'm going to pick it up, and I want 1 pallet, which in our case is 600 square feet of the Kentucky bluegrass. I'm going to come in the afternoon. I'll be at a field P10, and I can put my phone number in here, which would be the customer's phone number typically, and any notes, put good sod only, and then I save that order, and then sure enough it shows up on the delivery schedule here. The other way to do it for delivery orders, you would go up here and click New Order, and this would actually load basically a sales order page here. First, at the top of the page would be the ship date, which we'll just leave for today so it shows up on the schedule. But first you'd enter the customer name. We'll just call it Jack's Landscaping, which finds that in the database and actually populates the bill to address if you entered it before. The ship to, you can put a job name in here if you'd want a job name, and then the shipping address, which in our case we'll just send it to the billing address because that's what the customer wants. So we copy that over automatically. And then the alias and zone, this is for just to calculate the proper price. You can actually put a bunch of counties in here. I guess it kind of depends on how you structure your pricing for the freight. Some people just have a flat delivery fee, so you'd really only have one drop down here that just says pickup or delivery. In this company's case, we have a more, I guess, a more fine-grained freight pricing. So this would actually be going to Anne Arundel County, which that automatically populates as Zone 1, so it uses the pricing for Zone 1 for the freight. The contact name for the delivery would be Jack. I'll just put my phone number in here because I'm Jack. There's also a box here where you can kind of track where the lead came from. This customer is already in the system, so it automatically put repeat customer in there. So I'll just leave it as that. Payment info, we'll go ahead and you can basically pick how they're going to pay. Say the customer says that we're going to pick up a check. We'll just put check on there. PO number is optional. Some account holders like to put PO numbers on there. And then the pricing, if you remember from the that quick quote feature that I showed you prior to the schedule, this would correspond to those same levels. You can also, there is a plug-in feature for actually charging the credit card at the time of the sale here, if you want to do that ahead of time, but I'll go into that in a later video. But for this order's case, we'll just say it's a 4-pallet order of Kentucky bluegrass, and then say it's wholesale pricing. It'll automatically populate all the order details here, the freight, pallet deposit. I'll come to a total of $641.92. And then as you come down here, one of the best features of this program, it'll take this delivery address, and when you click locate using address, it'll actually try to find it on the map. And sure enough, it found it on the map. But say it's a new construction or something and it doesn't find it, what you can do, I'll clear the map, you can actually find it yourself, and say you knew it was, say right here, you just click just drop marker, and then you can actually drag this and save it right there, and then everyone will know that that's exactly where that sod should be delivered. So we have everything filled out here. Now we'll put a note on there. We'll put as soon as possible. Click save, and then you see right here that's the order, and you can actually go take a look at it. For the delivery map, this shows you for each day up here, which would be Sunday, March 2nd, it shows you each of your delivery drops, and the one that we just custom dropped, if you remember, on Pleasant Plains Road there, that's right where you dropped it there. This is kind of helpful for dispatching. You can see that you know, some of these orders are close to each other, so you might send this 4-pallet order with that 4-pallet order on the same truck. There's quite a few other features on the schedule. I'm just going to run through them briefly, just so we don't make an extremely boring video. You can put an order on a hold schedule. I know a lot of times job sites aren't ready, or due to weather, the customer just wants the order held. Instead of deleting it and then re-entering it, you can just click hold order, and it'll actually be transferred to the hold schedule, which you can see hold right there. And then once the customer is ready for it, you can go back in, switch hold back to whatever date they want to have it delivered. You can save it, and then it'll be back on the schedule. You can also duplicate an order. That's very helpful for jobs that are more than one truck's worth of sod. Instead of having to re-enter all the order details each time, you can just find a existing order and duplicate it. And then of course, if you do need to delete it, you can delete the order here. And then once the order is complete, you can actually press this little C button here, and it'll actually gray out that order to make it complete. Another feature I mentioned earlier was the ability to have your field foreman or harvesting crew see the orders that you want to have harvested on their iPad or smartphone. Basically how that works, you mark it to cut on the schedule here, and then these 4 orders in this case would be sent to who's ever cutting the sod in field 10. Basically what their screen would look like is basically this. I'm going to shrink this window down so that you can see what their screen would actually look like, because it would be quite a bit smaller because they probably don't have a full-size computer and the harvester. So basically it would look something like this on their phone. And you can see each of these orders. It gives them a total. They need to cut 50 pallets of 600 square feet, and that would be field 10 Kentucky bluegrass. So this will, if you had multiple items in multiple fields, they would get a tally for each field. So once they have this cut, they would actually just click this button and be marked ready. And then they can also mark it loaded. If they see the driver get loaded, they can themselves mark it loaded. So say Clark 1 and John 1 were both loaded. When you go back to the schedule, you'll actually see that those changes that I just made, which your cutting foreman would have made, they actually show up on the schedule here, so you'll know that those were cut and loaded. And you can also see here what time they were marked cut as well, and what time they were marked loaded. So like the cutting crew, there's also a similar feature for the drivers, where you can, once you've decided on your dispatching schedule, you can actually mark the sod to load, and then your drivers can take a look at a similar screen to the cutting crew there, and actually see the orders that are assigned to them. So right now only 1 day is showing up, because those are the only active orders for Clark here. But he can actually, these are ordered by the order that he should deliver them in as well. He can click on each one, and it'll actually tell you the customer, the address, phone number, and then have 2 buttons here. He can click or unclick if it's loaded, and delivered as well. So if he does that, if we go back to the schedule here and refresh the page, you'll actually see that that order has been marked delivered. So we know that that's been delivered. We can invoice it and mark it invoiced, and then complete it, and it'll be grayed out and marked complete. That's basically it for the delivery schedule. There's quite a few other features, but just for time's sake, I'm not going to go into everything right now. But I just want to briefly show you the production module here. You can basically manage all of your sod production and other row crops, or really whatever you grow, through AgriBoss. If you click on the company view, this will basically give you an overview of your company, your total acres, total fields here. Then each farm will have its own pane here if you have multiple farms actually, and you can see your acreages of your different crops and their maturity levels here. If you click on this tab here, it'll give you basically a rundown of your entire company. It says each crop that we grow, how many acres are in production, and how many are fully mature now and ready for harvest. You can drill into each of these farms. This will give you the maturity by month here for each of your crops at each farm. And then down here you'll actually have your fields, and then each one of your fields will list any active crops to the right of it here. So you can either click on the field or go straight to the crop. So this is field 14 at our Annapolis farm. You'll see the current crops, that's what's currently growing in the field, and then your past crops down here, that would be basically crops that you had at one time but you've harvested, but you still want to keep records for one reason or another. You can click on one of these recent crops here and it'll give you all the details that you'll have entered at the time of seeding, your planted acres, your rate, the date that you planted it. You can put your estimated maturity date here for inventory forecasting, and then it'll give you your fertilizer totals, your NPK totals for the last 3 months, last 6 months, the calendar year, and for the entire crop. That's sometimes useful to know for fertilizer records, and also just so you know what might be needing fertilizer soon. You actually enter the fertilizer records here, and you can also add any chemicals that you use if you want to keep track of those. Also, from the main page here, you can take a look at your fertilizer log and your spray log. That's just another way of looking at the data you enter. This is basically just a line-by-line chart of all the fertilizer applications, and you can actually very easily enter them in here instead of having to find each crop and field. You basically just select the date. You can select the farm, and then it'll actually search for the field and crop. So if you click P10, it'll populate this box with any current crops, which in this case there's only one, and it'll suggest the number of acres that you applied it to, and then you can enter in the rest of the details depending on what you spread and how you spread it. You can do the same thing for the chemical log. It's basically the same thing, but you'd be entering the chemicals in there instead of fertilizer. Well, that about wraps it up. I'll leave you with my contact info in case you have any questions or would like pricing information. I'm constantly updating and adding new features and would love your suggestions. Feel free to call me at 443-433-8737 or visit AgriBoss.com for more info. Thanks, and have a great day.